Good afternoon, Your Honor and opposing counsel. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your time today. Your Honors, may I please the court? I, Trisha Subramanian, am here before you on behalf of respondents A. Philip Randolph Institute, the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless, and Larry Harmon. This case is about the importance of maintaining the integrity of the most fundamental right of American citizens, that is, the democratic right to vote. Respondent Larry Harmon, a 59-year-old Ohio born and raised U.S. Navy veteran, has had this right taken away from him pursuant to the Ohio Secretary of State supplemental process. This case's focus is on the statutory interpretation of the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. The NVRA was established to increase the number of eligible voters, not permitting states programs that further disenfranchise them. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals held that the supplemental process violates the NVRA. Affirming this decision, I would like to bring up three major points. The Section 8 of the NVRA subsection B2 prohibits the supplemental process's removal of voters from reason of failure to vote under the same subsection. The supplemental process is not expressly permitted by the except clause. The supplemental process does not only employ subsection D's confirmation notice procedure, rather it sends out registration's failure to engage in any voter activity for 2 years as a trigger to send out confirmation notices. The NVRA expressly allows removal of voters from voter rolls under exceptions in subsection A3 to 4 of the NVRA. Respondent does not fall under any of these exceptions listed. He has never been incarcerated, declared mentally incompetent, deceased, changed his address, or otherwise been disenfranchised from violating election laws. These exceptions
But the secretary doesn't, but no one's saying that he falls under any of those exceptions, right? The secretary is saying, well, we use this process to identify people who have changed their residence.
Okay.
And isn't that really what's going on here?
Your Honor, I agree that that's what's going on here, but the process in which they identify these individuals does not fall under the NVRA. They use the voters' inactivity as a trigger to send out confirmation notices. We do concede that it does follow the NC.
But they use voter inactivity because they think the secretary's made a determination that sometimes voter inactivity means someone has moved. Isn't he allowed to do that under the NVRA?
Using not, can you rephrase your question? I'm sorry.
Sure. So you mentioned that that there's voter inactivity here, but what the secretary is saying is that this falls within this exception because voter inactivity is sometimes an indicator that someone has moved. So doesn't that mean that why doesn't that mean that this is authorized by that clause?
So the clause specifically under subsection B2 says that you cannot use a failure to vote as an indicator, as a trigger to send out a confirmation notice. And that's exactly what the supplemental process does, and it violates that specific clause of the NVRA.
Which clause?
Subsection B2. And it also violates subsection D of the NVRA.
So what does subsection B2 say?
So subsection B2 prohibits, subsection B2 says, except for the listed, I don't really have the statute in front of me, but it includes the except and prohibition clause, and the statute specifically says that it prohibits states from removing voters solely by the failure to vote.
I see. So it violates the provision that says you can't remove people because of by reason of their failure to vote.
Yes.
But these people were not removed only because they didn't vote. They also didn't respond to the confirmation process, right? So what about that? I mean, they weren't just removed because they didn't vote. They also didn't respond to the notice.
Right. So the supplemental process still uses the failure to vote as a trigger to send out confirmation notices. It's not that the voters change their addresses and fail to inform the registrar that they had changed their address. The main issue at point here is that they used failure to vote as a trigger to send out those notices. So it's not really working in tandem. They used one method to identify, and that identification method is not permitted under the NVRA. And that is specifically using failure to vote as a means of identifying.
So what you're saying is that the secretary did exactly what's prohibited by the statute.
Yes.
Which is to identify people because they didn't vote.
Yes.
But the secretary says, well, no, go on.
Okay. So I would also like to bring up the point that the Help America Vote Act amendments to the NVRA do not supersede or restrict or limit the NVRA in any way. They mainly are, the amendments mainly bring back the point that the Prohibition Clause prohibits states from using a failure to vote as a means of identifying when to send out confirmation notices.
But HAVA makes it clear that it's people, that this prohibition against removing people by reason to vote only prohibits people who are removed solely because they did not vote. And that's not the case here, right?
When we go back to a specific example of the respondent, Larry Harmon was not given any such confirmation notice. He wasn't even given any methods in which how he could remain an eligible voter. His name was just taken off of the list because of his failure to vote. They used his inactivity in the past 2 federal elections as a trigger to take his name off of the list.
But under the process, voters are sent a confirmation notice if they haven't voted. Whether Harmon was or not, I think is perhaps disputed. I don't know, but I think respondents have conceded that people are sent a confirmation notice before they're removed.
They are, yeah.
So why doesn't that save this? Why, they're sent the notice, and the statute says people can be removed if they don't respond to the notice.
Right, but the statute specifically under subsection D for confirmation notice procedure says that they have to have not responded to the notice, and in addition to that, not voted in 2 federal elections. It does not state that they just did not respond to the notice. It would have to be.
But that did happen. I mean, that's how the process works, right? The supplemental process?
That is how the supplemental process works, but as you see with our respondent in particular, he has lived in the same residence for 15 years. He has not changed his address, but they used his failure to vote as a trigger to send out alleged confirmation notice. They did not send out this confirmation notice mainly because of the reason that they thought that the registrar might have changed his address or not. They used his failure to vote.
I don't know. I mean, isn't it sort of kind of logical if the secretary would say, okay, this person hasn't voted for a long time, and he didn't respond to this notice, he must have moved. And doesn't the NVRA allow the secretary to come to this conclusion?
They allow the secretary to use the NCOA process to send out confirmation notices, but they do not allow using inactivity in 2 federal elections as a means for them to send out these notices, as a reason to send out notice for change in address. Mm-hmm. So the NCOA process, they do comply with that, but the supplemental process is where they're lacking, where they completely violate the subsection D's confirmation notice procedure, because instead of sending out a notice that that specifies change in address. They're sending out a notice to use. Your Honor, I see that I'm out of time. May I please reserve a minute to conclude? Thank you. So going back to that point, the Secretary argues that the supplemental process is okay because it couples the sending out of the confirmation notice with via the NCOA, but it does not really. It does use the voter's inactivity as one of the identifying factors, and that, Your Honor, is not permitted by the NVRA. Your Honor, I would like to move on to my prayer of relief now.
You're out of time.
Out of time? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry.